welcome to the Hardcore Soft Skills Podcast. This is Yadi Caro. In each episode, we delve into a different skill with the help of an expert. And after each episode, you can start applying what you have learned to advance in your career. First of all, thank you for tuning in and the support you have given to this show. People from over 30 countries are listening now, and I'm just very happy to know that we are all learning more about soft skills together. Today is a very special episode because I interview the author of one of my favorite books on management, David Allen. His book, Getting Things Done, was published over 20 years ago, and today it is as relevant as ever. The book, which has been published in 30 languages, has turned into a whole methodology called GTD, and it is now being taught by coaches all over the world. I spoke with David, who was calling from his home in the Netherlands, about the origins of GTD, and he shared specific actions you can take now to enjoy your life. It is not just about being productive and trying to do it all. So even if you have not read the book, you will learn a lot today. Let's listen. I'm so glad that you could join me here today in the podcast.
Delighted to, Yadi. Thanks for the invitation. Yeah.
And I wanted to know, because I've heard of other interviews that you have done and in your podcast as well, that you mentioned you established the difference between this is not necessarily the method of getting things done. It's not about just time management. Could you talk a little bit about that primary misconception of what the getting things done method is?
Well, you can't manage time. So what does time management mean? You don't mismanage 5 minutes and come up with 6 or 4.5. Time just is. It's an important component like space is. Right? So these are important components, but you don't, and yes, you can manage your space. When people say manage time, they're really talking about how do I manage myself during the time that I have? So it's really about self-management, but people oftentimes are uncomfortable saying, I need to manage myself better. But the truth is we all do, or we all could. We all have those opportunities. So they call it time management, but it's really about how do I manage my focus? How do I manage my choices? How do I feel good at the end of the day that I made the right decisions about what I did and what I didn't do? And so defining essentially what your work is, and your work meaning anything you want to get done that's not done yet, then how do I manage the scope and scale and content of all of that? So I feel comfortable that talking to you, Yadi, right now is exactly the thing I need to do, and that I can be totally present with you. There's nothing else I should be doing. Oh my God, I forgot, or I should, whatever. So I need to be present. So time management is about what do you need to do to be present with what you're doing.
I also wanted to know in terms of your particular background too, because you have a very interesting background. You have many professions throughout your life. I was reading on your biography. You were a karate practitioner, teacher, waiter, taxi driver. Do you know what you wanted to be in the future, or when you were growing up?
I had no idea. I had no idea. I was more interested in sort of truth, God, the universe, who I was, why I was on the planet, what I was all about, what this big game was. So I was not entrepreneurial or aspirational materially, really much at all. I liked a nice lifestyle, so I just needed to. They weren't paying people to do that, so you had to have a job. So they weren't really professions; they were just lots of jobs I had just to pay the rent and to keep doing and keep going with my sort of inner exploration at whatever level of maturity I was able to do to think about that, in my life. So that's what happened. And then, 35 years later, I said, I wound up helping a lot of people just by showing up and helping them design what they were doing because I'm so lazy. I said, why are you doing that? I've never been, I haven't been eternally organized. I've been eternally lazy, or let's put it positively, eternally efficient. I hate having to think about where is that, where do I find that or whatever. So I've always been, sort of focused on having some sort of a system so that you could stay focused on what you wanted to be focused on and not be distracted by, by wasting time or energy trying to find stuff or trying to think about stuff you haven't thought about before. So this kind of it's a mishmash of a long story, Yadi, of kind of where I came to all this. Finally, as I decided to create my own consulting business, out of just what I'd learned and what I was doing, and saying, I get bored. People, helping people fix their systems, and then the systems work, and then what? So it turns out I'm sort of a process guy, So then I discovered they actually pay people to do that. They call them something, so consultant. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I started my own practice, hoping and assuming I might be able to still make a living by just showing up on project by project basis with clients. At that time, I had a network of people and small business owners and entrepreneurs and whatever, and I just would go in and help them, and discovered processes that would help them stay focused as well as me, as my life was getting more complex. So I began to just cobble together these best practices about how do I handle this thing that has my attention so I can get it off my mind so I can focus on that. So it was, how do I engage with my life appropriately so I'm free to focus on what I want to focus on the way I want to focus on it, to be present, as the mindfulness people would say these days. But I learned that, 35, 40 years ago, that there were ways to do that without having to finish what was on your mind, but but that wasn't free. You couldn't do it by drinking or meditating or ignoring it. You actually had to engage with it appropriately. So I just discovered the algorithm or the formula about how do I engage appropriately with these things that have my attention, so that it's not dragging my energy out because I can't do anything about it, but it's appropriately decided, organized, clarified, and parked in the right place, so I can just be present by cooking spaghetti or writing the business plan or firing somebody or hiring somebody or whatever the heck you want to be present for. So it's really about being present, not so much about working harder. I'm sorry, Yadi. I mean, the word productivity's got a lot of baggage. It means, harder work, sweat, more time. They're going to ask more of me, whatever. Productivity just means get what you want.
Yeah.
If you're trying to take the evening to relax and you don't relax, it's an unproductive evening.
Yeah.
So productivity is about just producing whatever it is that you're after. That could be quality of life. It could be money. It could be, create a new business, whatever the heck you want to create. So I just identified essentially that whole algorithm or formula. How do I take what's got my attention? How do I manage it appropriately so that I can be present with whatever I'm choosing to doing, feeling comfortable about what I'm doing, equally comfortable about what I'm not doing, so I'm there. That's your most productive state.
That's wonderful, because people confuse that trying to establish systems in order to be able to get as many things done as you can on a day. And I always like your approach of the whole purpose is just being able to be present and enjoy the moment, not just about how much can you get in the day.
Well, excuse me, if your purpose is to get done as much as you want to get done during the day, don't read those people in the riot act. That's fine. Go for it.
Yeah.
Come on. A runner that's trying to run as fast as they can is going to keep doing that. So but that's probably not what those people want.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing, thinking that that's going to get them what they want, which is relaxed, more in control of their life, more productive. But, you can't, there's a great saying, you can't get enough of what you really don't need. Right. And so if what you think is more time and work harder, that's not what you need. You can't get enough of that. You can never work hard enough. You can never get enough time to do everything you want to do. So that's a great thing to keep in mind when you think about how do we be more productive. It's really about being more present with what you're doing, because you can hit a golf ball better. You can cook spaghetti better. You can tuck your kids into bed better. There's a lot of things you can do a whole lot more productively. Yeah. If you take the broader definition and interpretation of that term. There are a whole lot of things you can do more productively if your head's clear.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And what I also liked about your system is that it's not a matter of it's capturing things, but you also have a methodology on how to capture those things. It's not just a random to-do list and saving it for the next day. You have a system.
true.
Is there anything
Well,
that?
there are 5 steps. I didn't make them up. I just identified them that you need to do if you wanted to get clear about all those things. First of all, you have to capture all those things and what they are. So you identified, people make to-do lists, they write stuff down. Sure. They don't completely do that. So the first step in the process I uncovered is to completely identify everything that's got your attention. Little, big, small, personal, professional, doesn't matter. I need cat food. I need a new life. Should we adopt? Should I get divorced? We need a vice president. I need a new cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
We get all of that. That's the first thing to do, is to identify all those things that are pulling on the psyche based upon your commitments about would, could, should, need to, ought to.
Yeah.
So that's the first step, but that's step 1. That's the capture step. But then if you just did all that, you'll feel a whole lot better. Everybody listening or watching this at some point has made a list and felt better, simply because they externalize the stuff banging around in their brain, which is a crappy office. It can't manage more than 4 things in there before you start to be driven by latest and loudest, not strategic thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just cognitive data, by the way, in terms of research been done in the last decade or so. So your brain it's a bad office. So you need to externalize all that, but then you need to have a good external system that then manages reminders of those things. Reminders of what? Well, that's where step 2 and 3 come in. Step 2 is to clarify what you wrote down. You wrote down mom.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you write down mom? Because you had one? Yeah, you probably did. Oh, her birthday's coming up. Oh, great. What are you going to do about her birthday? Oh, God, I don't know. So you need to clarify what mom means and why you wrote her down, why it has your attention. Oh, yeah, we should celebrate her birthday. Fabulous. Now you have a project. Celebrate birthday. What's the next step? By the way, I should talk to my sister maybe about what we should do. Oh, great. So now you have outcome and action decisions you need to make about the things you wrote down. And that most people don't do that about their to-do list. They haven't decided the next step on it, nor have they clarified the specific outcome they're trying to produce. And so that's the clarification step, step 2. Step 3 is, okay, once you've clarified, celebrate mom's birthday. Where does that go as a reminder until that's done? How about a project list? Now I need to organize reminders of these things that have my commitment. So then there's step 3, which is organize. Yeah. I need to organize a reminder to call my sister about that, right? That's organize. So you capture, then you clarify, then you organize reminders of things you can't finish in the moment. Some things you can finish in a minute or 2 if they show up and you go, oh, let me just do that now. Yeah, great. But if you can't, then you need to keep track of that. Otherwise, your brain keeps spinning about that. What am I going to do at mom's birthday? Oh my God, am I going to do my birthday? But you need to stop that spin, get the monkey out of your brain. And so that's why I'm building a trusted external brain. Anybody listening or watching this that's got a calendar already has one, a version of it, right? So you can't argue with this. Otherwise, you would throw away your calendar. Oh, just keep track of everything you need to do, when and where. Mm-hmm. Go for it. And fine with me, I don't care. It's up to you. But if you don't want that stuff on your mind, then you need to trust your calendar. And you also then need to trust a list of the errands you need to run, the stuff you need to talk to your life partner about, the things you need to, calls you need to make, the websites you need to surf, etc. And so those become the content of, once you've clarified the things that have your attention, what do I need to do about them? Defining the work, essentially, that you have. And then step 4 is to make sure you look at the list. Mm-hmm. Hey, I got some time. Let me surf the web. What are all the web surf things I need to do? Great. I'm going out for errands. What are all the errands I need to run? Oh, look at that. By the way, I'm having a sort of business of life discussion with my life partner tonight. What are all the things I need to talk to him or her about? There's the list. Mm-hmm. Right. So then you need to reflect and review on the content of this stuff, so that then when you finally make a decision about what you do, step 5, it's a trusted choice, not a driven by latest and loudest choice. So capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and then engage in the contents of that. That's how you get control of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very well defined of those things that you describe. And it's just with the day-to-day, with the hustle, we just kind of forget and kind of respond to the latest thing and not have a strategic outlook on things. So rereading your book now, it's always a good reminder of all the things that we need to follow. And one thing too that from the latest version of the book that you had in terms of, you described that it, even with the changes in technology as before, as when you first published the book, the system still stays the same overall. The tools may have changed, but overall, there's not necessarily a kind of significant change based on tools. Have you noticed, is there any difference in the stressors that we have today from what we had before that you think we should pay attention to?
The only thing that's changed, Yadi, is velocity and volume and speed of new input. So there's how much stuff is coming at you, how fast, the quantity of that, and how much that then creates fast changing things that you then need to reconfigure what you're doing. That's what's changed. And that's just because the technology and the digital world and the globality and all that stuff has just added to the speed and velocity, and ubiquity. It's 24/7, it doesn't stop. So that's what's changed. It's just is the content of things you need to apply this methodology to. But the methodology doesn't change. It just changes the content you have to then engage with it. It makes it that much more important to engage the methodology so that you can stay on top of that kind of world that's happening faster, bigger, and changing faster. That's what's different. And that's why, my methodology is picking up speed out there around the world, simply because people are going, oh my God, now I need this. What's changed since I wrote the first edition in 2001 to 2015, when the second edition was not the methodology, but the audience. When they first wrote it, it was the fast track professionals and the CEOs and whatever that really needed this, because they recognized the need now, because they were being hit with this tsunami of all that stuff I just mentioned. Now everybody is.
Yeah, exactly.
Teachers, stay-at-home dads, physicians, anybody out there in a busy world. None of those people can trust anybody above them in any hierarchy has the time or interest to manage them. They've got to manage themselves. Yeah. So a lot of the change in the world out there, maybe to your point, Yadi, in terms of what you're doing in the soft skills, the hard news about this stuff is these soft skills are becoming more and more critical for everybody, because everybody's having to manage their own life as a self-independent contractor. Yeah. Whether you get a salary or not, you are on your own game, folks. Right? And that's a big change that's happened in the world too. It's just the nature of work. But believe me, Yadi, when we fly to Jupiter in 2090, you still need an in basket. You still need to capture stuff that has anybody's attention on that spaceship. Yeah. You still need to then make decisions about the next action that somebody needs to do. You need to still make a decision about, is there some outcome we need to produce here about this? You still need to then have some sort of reflective review process that the right people see it at the right time. So you're making decisions. That's how you get to Jupiter or get off of Jupiter. So I didn't make these up. I just identified the processes and practices you need to do to get control of any kind of a situation that's not ultimately in control at the moment.
Yeah. And you also recently published a book for younger audiences as well. And and I did wanted to ask you, because sometimes, we're all, for those of us who have a team and work in a team environment, and you wish they will simply have that implement those practices that you talk about. Is there a way that think that we can persuade others to follow a particular methodology?
Yeah. Well, interesting, Yadi. That's the next book. will be
Oh,
GTD
wonderful.
and organizational culture, and how much one of these practices implemented by a key individual and or a team itself moves them up the food chain. So you start to think at different levels in different ways, as opposed to, patching cracks and trying to handle stuff that's not been handled and dealing with all of that stuff. So these practices of GTD are quite appropriately applicable to team and culture, and that could be your family as well as your project team as well as your management team.
Mhm.
If I walked in as a consultant to your family, to your project team, or to your management team, my first question is, what has this team's attention? I'm going to go up to a whiteboard or wherever, say, what's got the teams, what's not on cruise control for you guys right now? What has your attention right now that needs thinking, decisions, whatever? And which you're going to cap. That's step one, capture. And then I'm going. Once we get all that on the whiteboard, we're going to go, well, great. Let's go through these one by one. Oh, what is that? Is there something unique guys need to do about that one? And by the way, what would your next action be, to put that to bed or to put it on, or does that need to go to someday maybe, or is that a dumb idea? So we did a clarify step. Then step three is, okay, once we've come up with the actions and the projects, then we're going to organize those things. Here's the 5 or 12 or 13 projects we need to do about this thing, right? Not only are we going to organize that, but then we're going to go, okay, and then who owns that? So in a team context, these principles just go apply, but there's more detail you probably need to drill down to. What you don't probably need to drill down to is what's the next action once you've had, hey, Jose, is that yours? Yeah, that's mine. Great. What's the outcome and when might we get that by? Okay, we got that. Great. Bye. Right. So Jose then needs to decide himself what's the next action he needs to do to make sure he makes that commitment. So then there's the individual productivity algorithm, which GTD really defines in detail, that then needs to apply to the individuals. So the individuals need to, let me back this up. Yadi, can you teach an organization to read? No, but do you need people who can read in your organization? So can you teach GTD to an organization? No. Do you need people who understand GTD to make the organization work? Yeah. Absolutely. So if you think about, that's the spin of the difference between the methodology I uncovered and how you could approach this to leadership, to organizational development, to any of the other sort of larger. You could take this to Kanban, take this to Lean, take this to Scrum, take this to any of this. And the people who are the best champions of these things, who know my stuff, go, wow, GTD is absolutely critical to make these things work.
Exactly. That is wonderful news. That's your next book coming up for the in terms of the organizational culture.
We'll see if the publisher wants to do it. We'll see. But that's in the works. Simply it's true. Once people get this, they go, my God, why doesn't everybody around me get this? It'll make life so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
No kidding. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to know as well, since you have implemented this for coming up with a methodology or kind of capturing what you have learned, how does a day in the life for you look like overall now with all these different what you manage right now, your GTD across the world? So just want to know a little bit about a day in the life of how you implement the systems on your day-to-day.
Me personally? Well, the night before, I look at my calendar for the next 2 days to see how long I can sleep. I love sleep.
That's good.
I try to sleep as long as I get, although we have a new puppy that has to get up in the morning and has to do her puppy things outside. And but I like to see what else I need to have in my mind about the day that's coming up, in terms of whether I can go back to sleep after the puppy does her thing, or whether I need to be up and do some other things. So then I look at my day the night before, because the only thing I have on my calendar are things that I have hard commitments about. I don't have I'd like to, or I should, or whatever. I just have, here's the things that I've committed to. So that I know what that hard landscape is, meaning the things that don't have a lot of movability to them. And then I sleep as long as I can, wake up, take the puppy, drink a glass of lemon water, share a French roast coffee pot with my wife, and read the Dutch news and the New York Times, front pages, just to get a sense of whether the world is still alive and well. And then, play a couple of games of Words with Friends, Scrabble, so I can get my brain up and running. And then I do whatever I feel like doing.
That is nice.
And that could be a number of things. But again, I have all of that in front of me. I have all of that context there. So I plan as little, in a sense, as little as I can get by with. Some things, need to have a time frame on it, but anything that doesn't have a hard external commitment, I leave myself nice and free to do. And then I just, manage all that. And then during the day, I just clean up my in tray, clean up my in baskets, clean up my email as I have time in between to do that, to keep the backlog clear so that I'm free to make decisions about what I need to do.
Sounds like a great day in terms of having that control over what you decisions and knowing what you want to do, and kind of leaving enough time to do what you want, which is what all of us want, basically, just not being able to rush around things.
Maybe this is just me personally, my style, but I like being free, spontaneous.
Yeah.
Don't fence me in. Create as little structure as I can to be free to follow my intuitive judgments moment to moment, because things change so fast, not only from the external inputs, but from my internal inputs.
Yeah.
You're going to be smarter tomorrow than you are today.
Thank you so much for sharing all this information, because it's absolutely, you've covered a lot of the great things that you have covered in your books. And every time I've read the book a couple of times, and it's always, I kind of come up with new things that I can implement in order to be have a better level of the good productivity type, let's call it. So thank you so much for your time.
You're quite welcome, and thanks for the invitation. Good luck to all of you listening or watching this. Yay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Hardcore Soft Skills Podcast. I have more resources for you from today's episode. Just go to the website, hardcoresoftsskillspodcast.com, and subscribe to receive the weekly lessons. If you like what you've heard, give us a 5-star review via the website or via Apple Podcasts, and share with others as well. Thank you, and until the next episode.